Hello everyone, you're watching sqadia.com and today our lecture topic is the sense organs. We are on the third section of our lecture topic, that is the eye. In this section, we will be briefly discussing the anatomy of the eye, the eyelids and the lacrimal apparatus. We'll be discussing briefly the layers and the cavities of the eyeball and the muscles which are attached on the eye and what are the movements which happen on the eye, and we will briefly discussing the physiology of vision. Most of the eyeball is within the eye protected by the orbit, which is a bony cage around the eye, which is formed by the lacrimal, maxilla, zygomatic, frontal, sphenoid, and ethmoid bones. Now, this is showing an AP view of an eyeball. As you can appreciate it, this is the iris. This is the cornea, the white part, and this is a thin layer called as conjunctiva. Superior laterally, this is a gland is present is called as lacrimal gland, which has lacrimal ducts and it secretes a fluid. On inferior medially, this is called as the lacrimal canals of Schlemm, which eventually drain into the lacrimal sac. This lacrimal sac goes into the nasal lacrimal duct and opens into the nasal cavity. Now all this is the fluid which is formed by the lacrimal gland is actually drained into the nasal cavity and can be recycled. But if there is any problem with, for example, increased production or decreased drainage, this will result in increased production of the tears and leading to increased intraocular pressure, which may cause glaucoma. Now, coming to the intrinsic muscles of the eye, there are basically 6 muscles which are supplied by 3 nerves. There are 4 recti, which is namely the medial, lateral, superior, inferior rectus. Then there are 2 oblique muscles called the superior oblique and inferior oblique. Now, lateral rectus, which tilts the eye towards laterally, or if I want to see over this side, this is the function of this. If I'm viewing anything from this eye, then that is the function of the lateral rectus. If I want to move my eyeball medially, that will be a function of medial rectus. Superiorly would be the superior rectus, inferior would be inferior rectus. Now, lateral rectus is supplied by the abducent nerve, and the other 3 recti are supplied with the oculomotor nerve. But the function on inferior oblique is slightly different. It is such that if I want to see superiorly and laterally, that will be the function of inferior oblique. And if I want to see inferiorly and medially, that will be the function of superior oblique. And superior oblique is supplied by the trochlear nerve. Coming to the layers of the eyeball. Eyeball has actually 3 layers. There is an outer layer called a sclera, the middle layer which is choroid, and the inner layer which is the retina. If you see over here, this is the lens. Lens actually divides into the 2 layers. This is called as anterior part, and this is the posterior part, or anterior chamber and the posterior chamber. If you can appreciate over here, the outermost layer is from the sclera. Then there is an innermost layer of blood vessels, which contains a lot of blood vessels, which is called a choroidal layer, a choroid layer. And then there is an innermost layer, which is called as the retina, which is actually involved in the visual field, vision, and all this process. And now if you see over here, this is the lens, which is suspended by suspensory ligaments. Then this is the cornea. The cornea is actually part of the sclera, but it is transparent and it does not contain any blood vessels. The sclera is the thickest layer and is made up of fibrous connective tissue that is visible as the white of the eye. The most anterior portion is called as the cornea, which differs from the rest of the sclera that it is transparent. The cornea has no capillaries and covers the iris and the pupils inside the eye, and is the first part of the eye that refracts or bends the light. There's 6 layers of the cornea, and actually this cornea gets its nutrition from actually by diffusion of the nutrients across this, as there are no capillaries. So it's very thin layer and results in also causes the refraction of the light. Coming to the choroid layer. The choroid layer contains blood vessels and dark blue pigment. It's derived from melanin, absorbs light within the eyeball and thereby prevents glare. Anterior portion of the choroid is modified into a more specialized structure, the ciliary body and the iris. The ciliary body muscle is a circular muscle that surrounds the edge of the lens, is connected to the lens by suspensory ligaments. Lens is made up of a transparent elastic protein, and like the cornea, has no capillaries. Because all those structures through which the light has to pass, they have to be transparent. If they're not going to be transparent, light will not be able to pass. Coming to the second layer, which is from the middle layer, which is called as choroidal layer, because it's made up a lot of blood vessels. The shape of the lens is changed by the ciliary muscle, which enables the eye to focus light from object at various distances for the eye. For example, if there is light coming from far or the object is far away, then light rays are usually converging. At this, sometimes they have to be deflected out so that the image will be formed on the retina. And sometimes if the image is quite close or object is quite close, then the light rays are usually diverging. For then the lens has to contract to become more convex and thicker so that the light rays can be more refracted so that image is formed on the retina. Just in front of the lens is a circular iris, the colored part of the eye. Its pigment is form of a melanin. Two sets of smooth muscles in the iris change the diameter of the pupil, the central opening. If there are circular muscles and then the radial muscles, circular fibers contract. This result in decrease in the aperture, and there will be decreased light going into the eyeball. And when the radial fiber contract, they increase the lumen of the iris. As a result, increased light will be going into the eyeball. The retina lines the posterior two-thirds of the eyeball and contains the visual receptors, the rods and the cones. The rods detect only the presence of light, whereas the cones detect colors, which, as you may know from the physics, there are different wavelengths of visible light. Rods are proportionally more abundant towards the periphery or edge of the retina, while the cones are more concentrated on one part of the area, which is called as macula lutea or fovea centralis. They are most abundant in the center of the retina, especially in the area called the macula lutea, directly behind the center of the lens, which is called the visual axis. There is a pith called the fovea, which contains only cone, is a small depression in the macula in the area for the best color vision. Now, if you see over here, this is the lens, and this is the anterior chamber, this is the posterior chamber. There is the vitreous chamber in the posterior chamber, and it contains aqueous chamber in the anterior chamber. If the light is diverging and it has to bend at a greater rate, then the lens has to become more convex. There will be fibers would be contracting, the suspensory ligament would relax so that the lens can become more of a bulge out or convex shape, and it can refract light at this area. If this is the area of the macula which contains highest number of cones as compared to rods, although overall the rods are more than the cones. And then this is a small pit in the retina called as a fovea, which only contains cones, and there is actually a place for the best visual acuity field. But if this object is way too far away, usually the light rays will be converging. So the lens does not need to become more convex for them to focus it on the macula or retina. So what actually happens is the suspensory ligaments become tight, they elongate the lens, and it becomes more concave, and actually the light rays are diverged to focus it on the retina. Coming to the cavities of the eyeball, as I just told you, there are two cavities, the anterior and the posterior. There is a large posterior cavity found between the lens and the retina and contains the vitreous humor. The anterior cavity is found between the back of the cornea and the front of the lens, called the aqueous humor, and the tissue fluid of the eyeball. Refraction of the light rays is the deflection or bending of the light as it passes through one object into another object of the greater or lesser density. The refraction of light within the eye takes place in the following order. That is, first it is always the cornea, then it is the aqueous humor, because again there is a density difference between cornea and aqueous humor. Then there is a lens which can contract and relax and increase the refraction at different rates. And then there is another difference between the lens and the vitreous tumor, which also the different density. So all these are actually contributing towards the refraction so that image can be formed on the retina. But the biggest contributor is always the lens. Although they all have a role, but the biggest contributor is always the lens, because it can contract and relax to become more convex or concave, and so that it can either bend at a more higher degree and bend and reflect light at a more area. Functions of the lens and refraction. The lens is only an adjustable part of the refractive system. When looking at the distant object, the ciliary muscle is relaxed and the lens is elongated and thin. When looking at the near object, the ciliary muscles contract to form a small circle and it becomes more convex. The elastic lens recoils and bulges in the middle and has a greater refractive power. When the light rays strike the retina, they stimulate a chemical reaction in the rods and the cones. In the rods, a chemical called as rhodopsin breaks down to form a scotopsin in the retinal, which is actually the derivative of vitamin A. This chemical reaction generates an electrical impulse, that is a breakage of rhodopsin, and rhodopsin is then resynthesized by a slow reaction. But this impulse then travels to the optic nerve, and eventually from the optic nerve it is carried to the optic cortex in the back of the head at the occipital lobe. Chemical reaction in the cones also involves retinal and are brought about by different wavelengths of the light, as cones are detecting the colorful light or the bright light. It is believed there are three types of cones. There are red absorbing cone, which actually get activated when they're at the red wavelength, and the blue absorbing and the green absorbing. They get activated at different wavelengths in a light. Impulses from the rods and cones are transmitted to the ganglion neurons. They converge at the optic disc and become eventually the optic nerve, which passes posteriorly through the wall of the eyeball and eventually relays in the optic cortex, or which is actually an optic area in the part of our brain, which is an occipital lobe back of the head, where actually all this area is, all the sensory area of the vision is actually transmitted and there. As you can appreciate it over here, these light waves are coming in. This is the nerve fibers, and there's the rods and the cones over here. And eventually, as this can be stimulated, once the ganglion form, eventually optic nerve is formed, and once the optic nerve is actually formed, this get taken up from this onward, they're taken up back to the optic cortex, or the cortex which is a visual cortex, which is present in the occipital lobe of our body. And from there onward, it is actually related to the higher centers, and we perceive the different colors and light as we can see now. So in this section, we have covered the brief anatomy of eyelids and lacrimal apparatus, eyeball and layers of the cavity, and different what are the muscles which are attached on the eyeball and the movements which take place. And we briefly discovered the physiology of vision. Thank you very much. Keep watching sqadia.com.